So the only thing that is missing still are our text. So we go back to our for loop. By the way, we did all this stuff outside the for loop. So in our for loop again, we will create our texts now. So now at first we have to create a new text painter. And here we can just use the class text painter and use the constructor. Then we can give the constructor a text. And here we use a text span. And in this text span, we also give it a text. And here we use the text of our segment. So we get our list of segments. We get the segment at the index I, and we put the text of this segment here. Then we can style the text a little bit. We give it a text style. I will just copy this one. I will just give it the colors.deep purple. We'll give it a font weight bold and a font size of 16. Then down the text span, we can give it a text direction. And here we use text direction left to right. Now that's perfectly fine. Now we have to also add the layout function here. So without that, our text won't be printed. And now we can try to paint our text, but we will see that there are still some parts missing. So we just use our text painter dot paint. Now we need our canvas and we need an offset. And now the question is, what is this offset? This we have to define at first, because this shows where exactly the text should be printed. And that's why let's create some more variables. And at first we need the text angle. So we have to say where exactly from the center, in which angle should the text be printed. So we can just define the text angle by using the start angle and adding half of the segment angle, because the text should be in the middle of our segment. And now we can define the text offset. And I will also just copy this one. So with this formula, you get exactly the right coordinates to put your text in the middle of your segment. And now we can use this text offset here. And now if I save it, you can see now our texts are written in the segments. Perfect. This is our fortune wheel. We already created our fortune wheel painter. Now the fortune wheel will be painted here in our scaffold. And now the next part is the next step is to create our button and to give it a nice spin, I would say. So we go back to our main.dart and we put here a column, and under our fortune wheel, we will put a elevated button and give it a text spin. That doesn't look very nice. So actually we have to do some more stuff. I would say we can wrap this fortune wheel with an expanded widget. So it will be in the middle of the screen and the bottom will be on the bottom. So now we can also give this one a safe area. So the button won't be in at the bottom of the screen so much. We can also give this column a cross-axis alignment, because I want to have the button on the whole width. So I will just use cross-axis alignment.stretch. Now you can see it will take the whole width, but actually I want to give it a padding too. And we will give it a padding of 20. I also want to give the bottom a nicer style, because at the moment I think it's quite ugly. So we give it a style. I will just copy it here. And you can see I will give it the deep purple background color, a white foreground color, and I will give it a symmetric vertical padding of 16. So now it looks quite nice. But if we press it, nothing will happen, obviously, because we didn't put anything here in the function. And also we didn't actually define the animation for our spinning, for our spinning fortune wheel. And that's the next part now. So we will go back to our fortune wheel.dart, to our fortune wheel stateful widget. And here we have to define some things. At first, as I told you, we need an animation. So for that, we use in our state, fortune wheel state, we will implement a single ticker provider state mix-in. And with this one, now we can create animations. We will create an animation controller, which is a late variable. And we can also give it we can also make it final, I would say. And we also need an animation with the type double animation. And we also need the current angle. We want to track in which angle the fortune wheel is at the moment. So that's what I did here. I just put the angle 0, but actually we want to put always the current angle. So that's why we create a new variable, which is named current angle. And now we can put this current angle here and give it to our fortune wheel painter. Then we will use our initState function. And here we will initialize our controller. So we use controller is animation controller vsync. And here we just give it this object here. So that's why we use the single ticker provider state mix in, so we can just give it this. Then we also need a duration. What time should the animation need to animate the spinning fortune wheel? And I would say we just give it a duration of 5 seconds. Then we also have to create the animation and initialize it. And herefore we just use a tween, also with the type double. We begin at 0 and our end is 2 times pi. And then we use the animate method and we give it a curved animation. This curved animation needs a parent, and this parent is our controller. And it also needs a curve. And here we just use curves.easeInOut. Then we have to add a listener to this animation because we want to know when it starts, when it ends, and so on. And then we can determine which is the winning segment, for example, and so on. So this is quite practical and quite necessary for us. So we just add a listener, and in this listener we do not very much. We just define a new function, and here we just put our animation.value in our current angle. So we always keep track of the current angle of the fortune wheel when it animates. Then we also need add status listener, and the status listener gets a status, and this status we will need to determine which is the winning segment, or we will need it to get the right time when we have to determine our winning segment. We have to see when the status is completed. And when it's completed, we have to call a function, and this function we still need to create. So yeah, let's do that later. At first, we can implement also our dispose method, because when we leave this screen, we want that the controller gets disposed. Now I would say we can create this new method. And what should happen when we complete the spin? When the fortune wheel spins and then it stops spinning, then it's time to get the winning segment, the segment that is actually up here. That's why we create a method and we call it determine winning segment. And here we have to get some things. At first, we need a normalized angle. So as you can maybe imagine, when the wheel spins, it gets to 360 degrees and it spins more than that. So it can get to 720 to thousands of degrees. So now we have to normalize it. We have to get the angle between 0 and 360. And that's why we use the normalized angle, and we do it the following way. We define our normalized angle, and we use current angle, and we use this modulo operator, and here we put like 360 degrees, and then it will give us a value between 0 and 360 degrees. So then we also need the segment angle, and well, you already know that from the painter, so I will just copy it here. It's the same way. It's just 360 degrees divided by the number of segments. And now from that we can determine the winning index. So this is an integer winning index. It's the index of our winning segment in our list. We get our segments dot length, so the number of our defined segments. We subtract the normalized angle divided by the segment angle, and here we use the floor method. That means if you have, for example, 1.999, you get 1. If you have, yeah, you always get the integer that is like the next smallest number. Then we subtract 1, and then we also use the modulo operator and use it on the segments dot length, so the number of segments. Then at the end we convert this one into an integer, and this is our winning index. With this index we can determine our winning segment, but at first now we need a new function, and we name it onSpinComplete. And here we give it the winning segment, fortune wheel segment, winning segment. And here I just, for now we keep it simple. I will just show a small snack bar and show the text of the winning segment there. So we use our scaffold messenger. Oops, I have to import this one, obviously. We use our scaffold messenger, show snack bar, then we define the snack bar here, and we just give it the text of our winning segment. So now we can call this method here onSpinComplete, and here we give it our segments at the winning index. We also have to call this method determine winning segment. Obviously, we have to do it here. We already defined this one. It still doesn't work because we have to start the spin actually. At the moment we don't start the spin. So we create another method and we call it start spin. Here we at first need a random object. That's quite nice because it gives us like a random number. It can give us random numbers, and from this random number we can calculate how much the fortune wheel should spin. So now we create a new variable which is called random end, which defines the end of our spinning. And here we can just use random.next double multiplied by 10. So that means that it can now take a value of 0 to 10, because normally it would take a value of 0 to 1. So if we multiply it by 10, each value that we get here, it can get from 0 to 10. But we never wanted to spin just 0 degree. So actually this is actually an angle. So to make it more clear for you, we get a random angle from here, and we never wanted to spin just 0 or just 1 or something like that. So that's why we also give it a small offset of 10, I would say. So it spins at least a few times until it gets to the end. So that's, I think, way better. Then we have to reset our controller. So if the controller or the animation, or if the controller already spun the wheel one time, so it just gets the reset. And now we have to define our animation again, because as you see here, we give it an animation from 0 to 360 degrees, but we want to give it like a random angle, obviously, the end. So that's why we have to give our animation a new value, which is also a tween with a double value. We have a begin of 0, of current angle actually. So this is also important, because if it already span one time or more, then probably the angle won't be 0. So we have to start at this angle and not at 0. So, and then we also define our end. So here we just use current angle plus our random angle, random end angle. And we multiply it by 2 times pi, which is 360 degrees. Then we use the animate method. In the animate method, we have to give it a curved animation. And here we give it the controller, and here we give it the curves. Here we give it ease out expo. Then we add a new listener. Oops, we have to put 2 dots here. We add a new listener, and this is also quite simple. We just, yeah, as we did it above, we just use set state and correct our current angle. Now this is on our animation, and now I would say we can just use our controller.forward. And yeah, now this is our start spin method, and actually we can't still press the button because in our main.dart file, the elevated button doesn't do anything still. So now we have to put something here. We have to, in some way, we have to call this method start spin. And how can we do that? The fortune wheel has a key. So we have to define a key and give it the key. And from this key, we can enter the state and call this method. So let's just create our global key here. So final global key. Fortune wheel state, we have to import this one. Now we can't import that because it's private. It's a private class still. So we just remove this underscore. And now we have our fortune wheel key here. And with this fortune wheel key, we can give it our fortune wheel. So we use the key variable in our constructor, and we give it our fortune wheel. Whoops. And we give it our fortune wheel key. But this is not constant anymore, so we have to remove that. And now we can just use our fortune wheel key current state dot start spin. And if we now press the button, you can see our fortune wheel will spin. It stops at 60, and you see we won $60. Now we do it again, and it starts at 60. That's quite nice. And it stops at $20, and we won $20. Perfect. And if you followed the steps correctly, I would say you have now your own self-made fortune wheel in Flutter and can use it in any app that you want. Have much fun with it. I hope to see you next time. If you liked the video, just leave a like and maybe subscribe my channel. That would help me a lot. So thank you very much, and have a nice time coding.